Hello class, welcome to our lesson for today. It deals with multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers. You want to pay close attention to kind of the rules and regulations that come along with multiplying, especially with dividing. So make sure you're paying attention to those rules as we're going through these examples. When you find the product, you'll notice on these questions I put a dot in between them. You probably won't see the X very often. What I probably do is more parenthesis based, more so than anything. So keep that in mind when you're finding the product or a multiplication answer. There's two ways that you can solve multiplication questions. One is to just multiply the numerator and multiply the denominator, find the answer. And so like this one here was 10 over 18. And then simplifies down to 5 over 9. You're going to want to always simplify your questions as you're looking to find answers like on Canvas. However, I probably don't suggest solving questions like that every time. What I do suggest, though, is when you set it up, you want to do something called cross-simplifying. So, for example, there's a 2 here and a 6 here. You can divide those both by 2. And so this becomes a 1 and a 3, and then multiply across, and you'll get 5/9. When you get to bigger questions, that's going to be faster for you. So keep that in mind as you're dealing with fraction questions that you might want to cross-simplify like that. The second problem, the other rule you need to make sure of for multiplication of fractions is that you have to make things improper to find an answer. This would be similar to decimals when you kind of multiply every piece by everything. Making things improper also does that same idea with fractions. So you'll want to make sure that you do that when you look at these questions. You'll notice here that I could cross-simplify both pieces and simplify to 11 over 2. You'll notice that's an improper fraction, and then the mixed numbers 5.5. It would kind of depend on the situation which answer you will see. I think you're going to see more improper long term, but you might see more mixed numbers to start with. So really, I'm just going to showcase a few things on each of these questions. This first one here, you want to make sure you make it improper, 23 over 4, and you can cross-simplify. If you're not confident about taking an improper fraction to a mixed number, I did some work right here. It's really just division. So take 23 divided by 7, and then the remainder is 2, but it's 2/7. Okay, 2/7. The other thing that you want to make sure of is like in the second question, the number 9. The number 9 needs to be written as 9 over 1. Every whole number or integer that we'll look at later in the semester can be written as a fraction by putting it over 1. And then your answer for this one is just 42. You want to write that as just 42, not 42 over 1 on Canvas. So keep that in mind as well as you're looking at multiplication questions. Sometimes you can't simplify. So this first question on this slide is 11 over 12. I changed 2 and 5/6 to 17 over 6. And what you'll notice here is the 11 and 6 don't simplify, the 17 and 12 don't simplify. Whatever you do, though, don't simplify the 6 and 12 because they're both in the denominator. It has to be one on the top and one on the bottom or vice versa, or at least one above each other because one has to be in the numerator and one has to be in the denominator. This question's kind of horrible because there's no simplifying involved, and it becomes 2 and 43 over 72. Again, not a great number there. The last question looks really complicated. There's 4 pieces to the question, but what's nice here is that you can cross-simplify anywhere in the top and bottom. So you can cross-simplify first and third, as long as one's on top and one's on bottom. Okay, you have to make sure you're organized though. So when you start crossing things out and simplifying, those questions become a lot easier. But you got to make sure you stay organized. So those of you that don't have great handwriting and you don't stay organized as often, you're going to want to make sure you slow down, take your time, and find that answer. But it's going to be a lot faster to cross-simplify than it will be to just multiply straight across. So you want to make sure that you do that on these questions. Next thing we need to talk about is the reciprocal. Okay, so like 5/6 and 6/5, you just flip-flop them. Those are reciprocals. That's also called a multiplicative inverse. If you want to try to impress your parents, you could tell them you learned about multiplicative inverses. If you tell them that, be careful though, because they'll probably ask you what it is. Make sure you can explain that it's really just the idea of a reciprocal. And the reason it's called that is the inverses, when you multiply them, should multiply to equal 1. For example, 5/6 times 6/5 equals 1. The other thing that you want to think about on these scenarios is the fact that if it's a mixed number, its reciprocal can't be found until after you make it improper. So multiplication, make it improper, then the reciprocal idea could be used for division. So when you're dividing fractions, the idea is keep, change, flip. Evidently there's a song about this. I will not sing it, But if you want to look it up, it's on YouTube. Many of you know it. Many of you are dancing in the background now, singing the song in your head. Okay, keep, change, flip. So the idea of keep, change, flip is you keep the first number, you flip this to a multiplication, or change this to multiplication and flip the second fraction using the reciprocal. So both of these examples, all we've done is you keep the first, change division to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction by its reciprocal. I'm not going to spend too much time on these two because the last example kind of showcases why keep, change, flip works. Okay, but keep the first, change the multiplication or division to multiplication, then flip to find the reciprocal. And then you multiply like you did on all the previous questions. These two examples do the same thing. The important thing is don't flip until you make everything improper. So notice for multiplication, first step was make everything improper. For division, the first step is make everything improper. You cannot cross simplify either until you make it a multiplication question. So I really love this first example because 9 over 2 times its reciprocal works really nicely, and you get 2/3. The second one, same idea, make everything improper first, flip the second, multiply and flip, and then the 7's cancel here. That's a nice question then. Don't cross simplify until you keep, change, flip though. Now the problem is you're going to have questions that look like this, and this is what's known as a complex fraction. So it's a fraction like in a fraction. Well, really, all this big fraction bar is a division symbol. So just change it up. Just make the division piece, okay, from this fraction idea. So once you get it set up that way, then it will look the same as what you're used to, and you can make them improper, keep, change, flip, and find the answer. So if you see a complex fraction in your mind, you can say, oh, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to change it to keep, change, flip, okay, and you can find the answer there. So you can go through kind of this example. If there's questions about it, let me know, and we can make sure to get it figured out. This second version is the same for the complex fraction, but what I love about this question is the fact that it showcases why it works. So for this scenario, what's happening is you make them improper just in their complex form, and then the idea is we really like fractions that have 1 on the bottom. So if I multiply 4/3 by its reciprocal, 3/4, okay, I can get rid of that and make it 1. But whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. And that's why keep, change, flip works. Okay, so I can go through that more kind of individually if you're interested. But the idea of keep, change, flip is if you had a complex fraction, you can make it into a easier question by doing that keep, change, flip idea. It gets you the same answer. Again, you may choose to kind of do what you want on some of those scenarios, but keep that in mind. Okay, the homework is the multiply divide worksheet. Make sure you cross simplify before you go through the answers. Okay, make sure you do that. Otherwise, it's going to take you a lot longer to find those answers. Have a great day, everybody.